Welcome back, everybody, to the show this evening. This is fascinating and fun, okay? Fascinating and fun. Howard Lutnick, who is Trump's Commerce Secretary, testified in the Senate, and pro-Trump Republican Senator John Kennedy of, I'm not saying you're the dumbest person in the world, but you better hope the dumbest person don't die, fame of avocado toast soy liberals need to, that guy, Kennedy, he just ripped apart, gutted Howard Lutnick like a fish, as friend of the show Benny Johnson would say. And it's interesting because, again, Kennedy's pro-Trump, but even he in this hearing is just baffled by Lutnick's logic and thus Trump's logic. So let's jump right into it. A lot to look at from this hearing and others. Here's John Kennedy.
If Vietnam, for example, came to you tomorrow and said, okay, Mr. Secretary, you win.
If Vietnam came to you, Mr. Secretary, and said, I want to have your child, would you just do it? Now, if they came to you and said, but I'll pay for all the child support, now you have a predicament on your hands. Sorry, I can't help myself. He's the protagonist in this story. I can't help myself. I'm sorry, John. You're too easy to make fun of.
If Vietnam, for example, came to you tomorrow and said, okay, Mr. Secretary, you win. We're going to remove all tariffs and all trade barriers. Would the United States please do the same? Would you accept that deal?
Absolutely not. Okay. Absolutely not. That would be the silliest thing we could do.
Why is that?
Vietnam has a $125 billion exports to us and imports from us $12.5 million. And you're thinking, Vietnam exports $125 billion?
I'm aware of the figures, but...
All right, we'll keep going. This is so beautiful. I love that the camera angle makes him look so small. He looks like he's barely making it to his microphone. And he has like a seat booster too. And the water looks stretched out, so then he looks even tinier. It's just absolutely brilliant. Now, if you'll take that down, if you don't know, I should have done this at the beginning. If you're not familiar with Howard Lutnick, he's become one of our favorite / least favorite on the show because of quotes like this.
You want to buy things from other countries and you want to bring it into America, then the price is going to rise. But if you make it here, then of course the price won't rise.
Right. Not too shabby. And then, of course, this doozy.
I mean, the European Union won't take chicken from America. They won't take lobsters from America. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak. I mean,
take Howard's meat. Why won't you take Howard's meat? His meat is beautiful and big and strong. Did he say strong, not big? Why did I say big? I mean strong. All right, back to the hearing.
But where do they get it from? They buy $90 billion from China, then they mark it up and send it to us.
So they're
just a pathway of China to us.
You wouldn't accept that deal?
No, it's a terrible deal. We're the one with money. We're the one with the store. Of course they want us to take down.
What's the purpose of reciprocity then? Is reciprocity not one of your goals? Are you telling the president that we shouldn't seek reciprocity? If that's what you're telling him, why are you trying to do these trade deals?
Yes.
What do we want? We want to encourage Vietnam to produce products they're great at producing.
But I want to get back to reciprocity. You just said you don't believe in it. You don't accept reciprocity as a goal. What are you negotiating in these trade deals?
Why would we open our bank account and their bank account when ours is 10 times bigger?
Why are you negotiating trade deals? You're trying to get other countries to lower their tariffs and trade barriers in return for us lowering ours.
That's true for the things that they'll take from us.
That's called reciprocity.
Of course.
Well, so are you or are you not seeking reciprocity in these trade deals?
We are absolutely seeking reciprocity with respect to things that can be reciprocal.
But you just said,
but when they're importing from China and sending it to us, they're not.
You just said that if a country came to you and offered you the ultimate reciprocity, no tariffs, no trade barriers, in return for us doing the same, you would reject that.
Of course, because they buy from China and send it to us. Don't you agree with
Suppose
me?
they said we won't buy from China.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking. If
you
it was Vietnam,
would you accept that deal?
we would consider it. For what things? For
What would
products?
you want to change?
Well, there are certain products we want to reshore. We don't want other people making them. We want to make pharmaceuticals here.
All right.
We need.
Because if you make it here, then there's no tariff. I love watching John Kennedy realize, wait, I think the liberals are right about this. He's like, you're not making any sense. I turned on my television and I saw this soy boy, libtard. They call him a libtard, named Luke Weasley or something or the other, saying the Trump White House don't even know what they want. This Kennedy impression is turning into a Biden impression. This Trump White House they don't even know they're kicking around. And I thought he was a fool. Lutnick, you're making that soy boy libtard look right, look rational. That's what this is turning into. Because they're coming to terms, John Kennedy is coming to terms with what we've been saying this whole entire time, which is they somehow are arguing we want reciprocity, but we also won't accept that, but we want them to reduce their trade barriers, so we will, but we won't, but don't worry about the negative impacts of tariffs because we're going to reduce them, but having the tariffs is what's going to bring in all the revenue so we can lower taxes, but the tariffs are going to go away because we're going to lower them because the other countries are going to lower them, and we're going to have a deal that's going to be so good so actually free trade will be improved, but the way that we bring back manufacturing jobs is imposing more tariffs and not having free trade and everything being made here, but we don't want certain things to be made here, basic stuff, we want complicated things to be made here, but the types of jobs that would be appealing to someone with not much education that would be making more basic items we don't want, but we will give those people jobs. That logic, John Kennedy is going, I don't think it makes any sense. Thank you, John. Thank you. I've been saying that. That's what I've been saying. But you were out saying, wow, this could go all right.
We're in uncharted waters. Tariffs are more art, in my opinion, than science. Tariffs are like whiskey.
Yeah.
A little whiskey under the right circumstances can be refreshing.
Is refreshing the word? When I drink whiskey, I'm not like, I'm refreshed.
Much whiskey under the wrong circumstances, and you end up drunk as a goat. We just don't know right now, but we'll know within the next 6 months. If it works, let's take a dozen. If it doesn't work, the president's going to have to recalibrate.
Recalibrate. He's so hard to make satirical because he's so satirical just inherently. So that's clip one. Kennedy in real time finding out how absurd his party line's argument is on this. Howard Lutnick, as usual, being terrible at explaining these things. And by the way, remember, we generate a lot of wealth we do have manufacturing, obviously, but also through other things. One example is we're a net exporter of services. But we generate all sorts of wealth through things that aren't making products. And so then we get to choose as a people how we spend that wealth. And so then there's a lot of stuff that because we have the extra wealth that we want to buy from other countries. And so they have more of an interest in making the stuff. We want to buy it from them. And so that's a good trade-off. Some things we would want to manufacture here for the reasons we've talked about before. But this idea that, as we've now reviewed many times, that Kennedy seems baffled by because it is baffling, that necessarily them selling stuff to us and us not selling as many physical things to them, that means we're losing somehow is just completely incoherent. Like if you have a job that isn't making something, probably most of you do have such a job. I have a job where I'm not selling a product. I might also sell products, but I don't manufacture products. That was a weird laugh. If you want merch, you can get merch, okay? But I don't manufacture. And so then I make money doing something that's not manufacturing. But then I have money, and if I go buy a product from somebody, they're not stealing my money. That's just an exchange that I feel is fair. I'll give you money that I generated in some other way. You'll give me something. We'll trade. But the way they put that, then extrapolating it to international trade, is every one of those trades where you hand someone money and they give you something that's valued at that amount is us being ripped off somehow. It's not. It's not. Please do click the subscribe button if you appreciate the show. Let's keep going. Kennedy, not more convinced about the logic of how they're legally justifying the tariffs, because his argument is, I don't think I fully agree with the characterization of one of the things he brings up, but his point is you could have legally justified these differently, but you set yourself up to be knocked down in the courts.
Tell me your understanding of the Trade Expansion Act.
Oh, no.
I don't have a really good understanding of the term. I may know the act, but I may not know its title.
You're not familiar with the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 that gives the president almost unlimited authority to impose tariffs so long as you conduct an investigation? You don't know about that?
Oh, my 232s, of course I do.
Okay.
Sorry, I just didn't know the title of the plan,
Yeah.
but of course I know.
Why didn't you advise the White House instead of proceeding?
I love that. No, tell me. Oh, that Trade Expansion Act. Yeah. That's my favorite one of them.
Proceeding under other statutes. Why didn't you advise the White House to proceed under the Trade Expansion Act?
The president chose IEPA because he could do it swiftly and he could do it sweeping in order to address the underlying problems that had created the $1.2 trillion trade deficit that was...
Which is a meaningless stat. Not meaningless, but not super meaningful. I have a trade deficit with the grocery store I go to.
Have you read the opinion in VOS Selections, VUS?
I have.
What role does the major questions doctrine play in that decision?
I am not a lawyer, so I can't speak to it with that kind of precision. That's a litigation that's under current investigation.
Are you familiar with the major questions doctrine?
Not offhand, but I did, of course, read the decision.
Well, about 3/4 of the opinion is on the major questions doctrine.
Again, I tend to not know the title. I know the topic and the details of it, but I tend not to focus on titles. Sorry.
I'm way over. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman.
You know how... Yeah, I just think that we get so caught up in titles. It's like, if you're a dude and you have sex with dudes, do you have to be labeled as gay? Back when I was a kid, that was just having a good time, you know? If I'm a boy and I want to dress up as a girl, does that mean I have to be trans? Like, these titles, we're getting so bogged down with the titles. And similar to how I don't see race, I just, that's not something that I consider. I don't see the titles of trade policy. I know all the details, you know, like the content of the character, not the color of their skin thing. Yeah, it's like that with trade stuff. I don't want to know the title, the label, but I know all the relevant details, I promise. Oh, Howard. I think it's time that Kennedy drops his bar on Howard.
Democratic colleagues say that, well, we didn't get anything for it. You know, if you believe that, I'm not saying you're the dumbest person in the world, but you better hope the dumbest person in the world doesn't die.
That's right. I need him to drop one of those on Howard. Also, at some of these hearings, Linda McMahon, the education secretary, was being grilled, and this didn't go particularly well.
That I would like your thoughts on, simple yes or no. If this is a legal DEI, an example, would you say that it would be an illegal DEI for a lesson plan on the Tulsa Race Massacre?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Do you know what the Tulsa Race Massacre is?
I'd like to look into it more and get back to you on it.
Okay, so I look forward to that.
Oh, no. You know the phrase, the blind lead the blind, like blind leading the blind. Can you facilitate a good educational environment if you're not? I don't know, maybe. She also refuses to directly answer if it's appropriate to teach that Biden won the 2020 election.
Okay. How about social studies standards that teach that President Biden won the 2020 election?
I think our studies should all be taught accurately.
Yes or no?
I think our studies should
No.
be taught
The
accurately.
question was, do you believe that social studies standards that teach that President Biden won the 2020 election is an illegal DEI? Yes or no?
I think I have said we should teach accurately. We should.
No,
be
you have
on all
not answered
sides.
the question.
Well,
I
answering
don't
the
understand
question.
why you're incapable
I'm
of
just
answering.
not giving you the
Where's this guy looking? He's just kind of looking off in the distance.
answer you want.
No,
but
I want
answered
the answer,
question.
whatever your answer is.
I just gave you the answer.
No, the answer is yes or no.
No, the answer is I.
The
think our
answer is
courses
yes or
should be
no.
taught
Gentle
accurately.
ladies.
Thank you so
time
much.
is-
I yield back.
This is the post-truth world that we're in now, where teaching as you go through the presidents that Biden won is something the education secretary has to go, I don't know if we can. That just seems, it seems really divisive. And we just don't want to alienate people. We don't want to teach them to believe things that could divide them from their neighbors, like who won elections. It's just a little bit complicated, so I wouldn't be able to answer it yes or no because it's complicated. It's complicated election outcomes, and similar to how like slavery, like we don't want to divide people, like pro-slavery, anti-slavery. Like we don't want people to get where then. Imagine you learn in class that slavery is bad or that it's bad, and then you're a student who wants it. Then, like, how alienated would you feel in that scenario? Is maybe what I would. That's where they're going, by the way. Hello? They've already inched that direction. I remember my middle school teacher in Texas was like, definitely slavery was a big part of it, but also it was so much more. It was an economic argument, the whole Civil War debacle. and as a kid, I was like, okay, all right. I think, wait, something sounds, hey mom, what's the Civil War about? So they're going in that direction. Here's more from Linda.
So I'll ask you, do you think it's right for kids to not have food to eat at home before they go to class in order to make sure that a billionaire that doesn't even know how many more millions of dollars they're going to get could just get a few million more?
I want to make sure that as the Secretary of the Department of Education, that the president's plan to make school choice available to every student in our country is what we follow.
And the president's plan specifically takes money away from those kids, specifically takes food away from those families, specifically takes money and sends it to big contractors, big companies, and sends millions of dollars to billionaires like you who don't even know how many extra millions of dollars they're going to get. So,
yeah, and that's just undeniable. But there's something to consider. The Associated Press reports the Congressional Budget Office projects 10.9 million more people will be uninsured in 2034 due to health coverage changes from Trump's big bill. I love that they took out beautiful. I really appreciate that. That's really, wow, that just made my day. So, millions will lose health coverage. But, as someone responded named Wilson, yes, this seems bad. It seems bad. But it is a small price to pay to prevent 3 trans people from playing JV high school girls field hockey. That sums up, by the way, I'll have you know, the 2024 election. Losing a bunch of health coverage? JV high school girls field hockey.
I feel like I'm dying inside.
Yeah. even though it's not like Kamala had a strong stance on even the latter issue, but unbelievable. And then, you know what? I've given Chuck Schumer a lot of crap. And apparently the DNC rented a taco truck and was handing out tacos to people in RNC. A little cringe. But here, I don't actually mind this, which is renaming this to the Everyone's Gonna Die Act, because that's what Joni Ernst justified it with.
Here's the We Are All Going to Die Act. It says nearly 14 million. It's 16 million, getting closer to 16 million according to CBO's numbers, we've been told. 11 million people cut off from affordable food, tax cuts for billionaires. We're all going to die, Bill.
That's what Joni Ernst said. It is a quote. That I do think is a more powerful message, by the way, than taco. Okay, we can retire taco. Let's lean into the Republican senator who said we're all going to die when asked about Medicaid causing people to die. Tell me your thoughts in the comments.